Okay. So the one thing I do want to point out on the next slide at the bottom there is we've sort of, the catalogers and I have sort of noticed that this has been an issue for a while, but it was sort of, when do we tackle this? How do we tackle this? So the help desk was sort of, the help desk question was sort of the impetus for this. Because as part of the OCLC cleanup, that I think most of you have done, one of the last reports we give you or ask you to look at is sort of your items that are stuck in transit. Unless you didn't have very many that we were worried about, then we don't ask you. And I think you were one of those that we weren't worried about. So we look at all your items and what statuses they're in. And if you come up with a whole bunch of these, we've been asking you to clean them off. So this is the numbers after we've done some cleanup. So I think if you go to the next slide, I'm trying to remember it. So this is the proposal now for how we can clean these up into the future. Once a quarter, so the 1st of January, April, and July, any items with these statuses that have a last status update date in Horizon that is older than the previous quarter's date would then be changed to missing. So they're not in transit anymore. So I give you an example of this on the next slide to help you with the math. So basically, you are given 90 days to find your stuff that's in transit, and then at that point it gets marked as missing, and it no longer becomes eligible to bill SELCO for ILL reimbursement. So it's kind of a, you need to keep track of your stuff, and you need to kind of do your job, and we'll mark the stuff missing that you're not tracking. So theoretically, if you were to approve this, I would run it on April 1st, and anything that has been in transit or transit hold prior to January 1st of this year, so December 31st, 2014 or sooner, would be marked as missing. And then every 6 months I clean up missing items, so they would get stuck. They would sit as missing for 6 months, and then they would get purged from the system.
What is the impact of being tagged as missing to a public library?
I feel like, I mean, the idea is, and I think you guys would agree with me, missing is a little bit more, says a little bit more, probably not a whole lot more, than in transit.
Well, and another thing is missing items can't be requested.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you.
But as far as a dollar amount?
But as a patron, if it says missing,
yeah,
then I know I'm not going to make a request. I can't make a request.
Yeah. You're not vanity.
But as far as the dollar amount to an impact between SELCO and the library, what does the missing tag, does the missing tag have any impact as far as, except that ILL would then be dropped from their number that they get for their processes during the month?
No, we will count the interlibrary loans as far as net lender, net borrowers. That is not affected by this. So the fact that Zumbrota Public Library has been a net lender since 1983, and pick a different library that's a net lender, the counting of the who lent more than they borrowed is not affected by this.
The actual item that is missing.
It will affect.
If Owatonna put the book out and it's missing now from during that transit process, and it was on its way to Albert Lee, because how does
Owatonna recoup their losses? Is what you're asking.
Well, I don't know. Is there there's a missing tag?
Missing tag means they can't, right?
Basically, that's what I'm proposing. Is they have 90 days to say, Albert Lee, where's my thing?
Okay.
And Albert Lee goes to the shelf and says, I can't find your thing. And then Owatonna says, okay, I'm going to bill SELCO's ILL reimbursement fund.
And we have a very few number of libraries that don't.
That even mess around with it. That just curious.
Yeah.
If the question comes up, what's the financial impact?
The largest biller of SELCO's lost items fund is Rochester Public Library, and they are operating on a different system, and we have a different process in place where we're trying to negotiate with them because, but theirs is complicated by the fact that they go to a collection agency, and so sometimes they're asking for reimbursement that's 2 years old, and I think that's a little bit out of our realm of responsibility. But that's a different issue. It doesn't touch this at all.
Does that answer your question?
I just if somebody asks
Yeah.
you, okay.
No, it's more of a,
After 90 days.
you have 90 days to find your item or bill for replacement. And
we could set that at a different amount. You could set that they have to, you don't mark it missing until.
90 days is more than enough time.
Okay.
I thought that was fair, but I'm not sure.
Feeling internally.
Your school, does that quarterly come on July 1st? Or
It
what?
would, yeah. So,
You got basically 3
thought
months
about
when
that.
there's nobody there. I don't know if it'll make that big a difference, but it might when you first go back to get.
it would impact them, I think, more so in the October running, because then your items have possibly, say you're returning something at the end of the school year and it's May.
Okay, so it wouldn't
sitting
be
back
far
here.
enough overdue. And by October, you're around and it should be that.
Yeah, or we could adjust the script for the school locations if that's a concern, but yeah.
Or if we want to do it quarterly, we could just not make it on January, April.
Right, true. We could just shift it, so I assume that's
Well, yeah, or whatever. But
Right.
as long as it's in the middle of the 90 days, it's not so bad. But if
Right.
you get right at the beginning,
But like you said,
June
nobody there for 3
something,
months.
you're not going to be able to basically even see it. So it doesn't sound like right offhand that should be a big issue, being that they would have to be missing already for 90 days, not just at the end of the school year. So.
And schools are generally pretty good about getting all their items back at the end of the school year anyway.
Yeah, because otherwise they don't check the kid out, or at least they never could.
I hadn't thought about that, honestly.
Well, that's why this committee is to take into consideration what you would do, either shifting the months or doing something different with the script for the schools so that that July run would, because really as you're trying to close things down, I'm more worried not about the July running because the schools are really pretty good about closing down shop. I'm more concerned about the October run, but that, you know, that first month of school is pretty chaotic. So whether or not they actually get to the report that they need to run to check on something.
So we pushed it back, so it was not January. Pushed it back, so it was what, February, May,
October.
August, November. Yeah, would that be, I think, that would give the schools an additional month. Yeah.
By avoiding January 1st, you've got that other chance of Christmas and all that
All
other
the
stuff
holidays.
going on in everybody's libraries, that maybe by January some of that will get settled before.
That works. Yeah.
So then you need something from the committee.
I guess it should be an action item.
Like
I
a
don't know.
recommendation.
Yeah. Is it not? Mark is one? No, Mark as well. That would be my fault. Sorry. Probably should have let.
Well, I think when the agenda item came to me, I said, let's take it to the committee. We have had topics that have needed to be discussed over many, many months. If this was one of those, then I wanted to give you that option to say we want more information. If you are comfortable today telling Cheryl, make it so, then you can make an action item anytime you want. Make it so.
I think I was concerned when we talked about it. We were sure if they were going to need to discuss it because we're limiting a time frame and there's a financial implication. So.
We have so few libraries that submit a bill.
Okay.
So
the fact it's our responsibility. I mean, in the end, if we choose not to or whatever, the main thing is to get the records cleaned up. To me, that's more important than the
and
reimbursement.
to send an accurate message to the patron that this is
Right.
absolute in transit first.
Yeah, they think
They want it.
Yeah, you make a request.
Okay,
Request once a year, request in the whole, my God, you'd be.
But one less thing we have to bother with. Right. To me.
Yep.
So did you make that a motion? Or
I will make that a motion.
And we can change it to the calendar
to reflect the school
the February, May, August, November.
I don't have any issue with the time. Just
Keep it going.
Okay, any discussion before we vote further? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passed.
Thank you. Wow, I just love these cleanup questions. We'll be able to report back to the board in April that we've actually done some simplifying of the system.
I want to know how many seconds this saves now in the system.
Response time improvement.
I'll work on that.
More difficult to quantify, but I think where we will really see some improvements is in our user support operation, help desk calls and questions about these things. But the real benefit will be the patrons.
But I did ask Cheryl at some point to give some numbers.
Oh, you did.
About, but it wasn't expected to do here today. I was really thinking more for the April board meeting and then for the subsequent ILS ops meeting. Okay, so we cleaned up the expired borrowers. How many records did that actually affect? Was it 200 or was it 2,000?
34,000.
Exactly. So I think that, some of the work that she's done, and maybe, it's good that it took you 5 months to figure that one out, is that, it really, just even if we don't have split-second timing as to how fast the processor is working, I think we are smart enough to note that if there's 34,000 less records, it's more efficient.
In the old days, what we did is we used that for justification for a faster process.
It's all virtual. It's all virtual now. So Horizon goes fast, Horizon goes slow. It depends on what mood I'm in that day.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to starting the discussion on the hold expiration by Tyler.
Oh, yeah, let's see. So I prepared this document out there for any of you haven't had a chance to read it. Basically, when Cheryl automated the email notices, one of the things we were able to do, I don't know if we could do it before, or if it just changed in the default, was when you send out a hold notice, it has the expiration date for the hold on the item.
We could not do it before because of character limits.
We couldn't do it before, okay.
We're limited to 255 characters, and now we're not. So.
Okay. So when she did that, the default was to have it turned on so it has the date when the hold expires. So here's the tricky part is, if you aren't familiar, I'm sure most of you are, the region has set up that circulation rules follow whichever library owns the item, including hold period on the hold shelf, even if it's at a different library. So when this happens, several libraries at least have had in their notices, this item is on the hold shelf for you, come pick it up within the next 7 days or we're going to return it. The problem is the lie becomes revealed once we have the dates in there saying, okay, that's actually a 3-day hold period, that one's a 10-day hold period. So we've had several libraries contact us and had us remove the date from that one, and rather than going down the whole route to saying, okay, you all need to be following this rule, we decided it would make more sense to say maybe we should consider all trying to set the same time period for one of these things, since mostly it is affected at other libraries rather than your own library for this one particular circulation rule. I mean, it can affect your own library if one of your patrons is requesting your own material that we picked up, but no one really likes that happening anyway. So I just did some preliminary research on general hold periods throughout the region. It's the table down at the bottom, number of items that have that.
I think I have a hold period of 0.
We had to look into that.
Oh, sorry. And what do you need to put you on the spot, baby?
No, actually, there's a reason for it.
Okay.
It's just, it took me a little while to figure it out, and a couple other ones do too. Actually, some of them are for non-circulating items, which I honestly don't understand. But
yeah. And we have lots of those.
And some of these rules, I think, have just been forgotten because they're based off of exceptions. No one has a default of 0 or 3, anything like that. There's just an exception in there. There is one item that has an exception of 3-day hold period.
Kind of amusing.
One item?
One item.
One item. What is the item?
I don't know. You can ask Brad.
I would think you would come up with a title for that. See, maybe it's the Well, those get so.
Yeah, those are good.
Right. Forget that. I've already had
Number one,
pick that puppy up.
And then a couple of exceptions for 21. Most of those are either the Parenting Resource Center or the Northfield Bookmobile. But the other ones, 5 through 10 actually are pretty standard. 14 is an exception for most of the rest of them. But there's calculation as little preliminary analysis, median, and the mode are both 7, but the average comes out to 8.03 days for whatever has set their hold period. So that's the research I put into this. At this point, feel free to discuss what you think.
I was directed to tell you that Owatonna would like to see 7 days. That seems to be the most appropriate one for their workflow, since Mary Kay isn't here. And I talked to Dave who handles our IRL stuff, and that's the number that he says 8 would be okay, 7 is ideal.
Yeah.
Just the process that
That's the same way we feel about it. I mean, I wouldn't object to 8, but I would not go any higher than 8. 7 is where we want it. Well, when you think about the fact that if you close the request and you put it in the bin and the bin is already gone for the day,
right.
It sits overnight if you're a public library. So that's 1 day. Then it comes here, so that's a day, and it gets to the library the next day. So that's 3 days. It gets checked in, assuming that it's a Monday through Friday. The hold starts at 7 days. So then by the time you allow for the, if the staff pulls it right off the shelf on the hold expire date, that's the next day. So we're at 8 anyway. And 3 days back, it has been gone if it's not used. Now, if the patron uses it, that's what we want. But if it hasn't been used,
It's been gone over 10 days.
for 2 weeks.
Because it's coming back, yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
That's what it is for us, 7 days. You know, we've actually started tacking a fee if they don't pick it up. They charged $1.
My library does that too, and I don't like that.
Well, you should pick that more promptly, Cheryl. That's the whole point with this.
Yeah.
That's the whole point with this. Call ahead and we will make an exception. Some people, you know, request a whole bunch of different things.
Maybe he's only charging me, right?
Yeah, they, you know, they create, you know, they request 10 or 14 books and they pick any of them up. So
I did not understand, or maybe it was because it wasn't all that detailed. I know Ann Hokinson is not here today and isn't online. She had some concerns.
She did.
I don't remember what. I don't know what they were. I
I'm
didn't
not
really
really sure what they are.
Didn't she email something back on
She
that?
Yeah, but it was kind of.
It just alluded to concerns. It didn't
It
lay
didn't
them
really
out.
say I would want this or I would want that.
Don't really know what she was getting at.
Kind of
Basically, Ann is saying the same thing that Ann just said. You know, this 7-day period here. Thanks, ditto for us, except we use 10 days, but say 7 to the public. So they're actually using 10 days, but they're only saying 7 to the public. We do this because we call the next morning. So basically, she's, in my mind, she's okay at 7.
And her comment was that it would require a change in workflow.
And there are
Yeah, that's kind of, I couldn't figure out why it would.
Okay, wait.
So
her setting is 10? Sorry.
they're calling it,
I can look quick.
They have it set at 10.
They have it set at 10, but then they tell the public 7
Oh,
when they
yeah, we
call.
had this
Actually, there's
conversation.
another library that
And
Yeah.
I
I think we had the discussion about
About,
that.
I think if you look at Owatonna, it's also set at 10, but they work off 7 extra hours.
ours is 7.
Because I think what it is with that, the 2 library, well, the one that I know of that is not Austin that does this, is they've had some irate patrons come in and say, but it should be 10 days, and you counted Sunday, or you didn't count Sunday, and
We actually
we're
have a
closed, yeah.
thing we hand out, you know, that tells them this is when it has to be picked up. You know, if it comes in on the Monday, you have till thus and so. I mean,
Right.
you're never going to cover them all.
This is what she wrote.
Yeah. What is that? Let's see, this one's, this one was on March 10th. I got one. She replied, there's another one on March 10th.
Oh, early
didn't
and
necessarily-
we didn't get that.
Some things that we do is
It was internal.
make 3 days for actual mailing.
Oh, she's not.
Oh.
Their notices for review, she's not putting her holds out for 3 days. That's what.
Oh.
Oh, it must have been a...
Okay, maybe they were doing it back and forth, and I got it because I happened to be here.
A lot of places do.
One I've seen.
But Ann was on March 10th is the one that I was reading it.
Okay.
So internally they must have been working some things out as well.
Okay.
But the last thing is we're open to change, so that sounded good. But I don't want to dismiss a member of the committee, especially since the member of the committee contacted all the directors and all the ILL contacts in the public library. So how does this affect the schools?
Oh, school.
Well, if the hold expires, if you're on vacation or something and you come back and in a day or two, you can still check it out to them, right?
Yeah, because you still actually physically have it. People do that. Most you can take in and then check it out.
You know,
because
because
it's technically, but okay.
Oh, it is stuff.
I mean,
We were to school from 4 till 5. Although, like I said, this is mostly other libraries' hold period is what affects you more than anything.
Right.
Right.
Because otherwise,
What we're trying to do is make this universal,
you usually find
right?
the kid and get it to them one way or another.
But we're trying to make this universal. Because I think that's the crazy thing is that the book comes from Austin and it has 10 days on it. The book comes to my library from Elderslie and it's got 7 days. And then there's another somebody who's got 21 days, and so
That
they're...
was the example, a DVD that went out for 21, goes to the library for 21 days. They lost it for a month.
Well, and that's why
That's way
I don't send out DVD, because you never get them back.
Owatonna does. Evidently, Owatonna does.
They do. And we don't accept them, and we don't send them out.
I don't know if this ever happens, but if you have libraries that do charge for not picking it up on time, and the item has gone to another library where the patron is not used to that time period, they get blamed.
Yeah, I don't have any problems with the 7 day. Beyond that, we're a net lender. We're a major lender.
You're a major net lender.
And that's just too much gone. You know, if we get it 10 days, I mean, that's a lot.
It's got to be sufficient, I would think.
And to me, 7 days is, you know, a sufficient amount of time, especially, you know, considering our turnaround is really very quick. I mean, as far as making the request and if it's on the shelf, getting it to the patron.
So a 7 day counts the weekend, right?
Yeah, all days, even closed ones.
But if it comes in on Monday, you have till the following Monday to get it. So
is there a way to do 7 days based on the open day schedule?
I wouldn't want that. I would go for all day.
That would be wild.
Yeah.
Because
and some of them change during the year when they're open.
Yeah, because we're not open on Saturdays. I'm going to cancel.
Let's just go with 7 days. Period.
You bring that solution to the next meeting.
We tend to overthink every single thing we do. 7 days is common sense.
Well, I was just trying to think about from your guest point of view that something comes in on a Friday, and I come in then after that. It's been a long weekend or something.
And I'm trying to save you some time here.
Okay. Right.
I'm not sure, and I'm not sure,
That's the whole point.
and to be honest, I'm not sure in Horizon if we could set it up that way. I think it's hardwired to be.
Yeah, other than that I provided some comic relief.
We were going for the simplistic area here.
This is like, I'll tell you a story from Midlink. This one I can tell. So there was this question that came from those of us in the audience, and the vendor answered it. And then there was not an understanding. And I started to clarify because I thought I knew the answer. And I stopped, didn't I, mid-sentence and went, I am not the person in the world in this room that should be trying to answer a technical question. But it seemed like it was one of these things, and I was understanding it. So, yeah, comic relief for today. I know nothing about hold.
Thank you. It's, like I said, yeah, I don't mind having it for everybody. I understand that. Simplistically, that's the best thing to do. It's just that I don't want a long cruise. And 7 days is what I could live with.
I don't know. This was marked as an action item. Are you ready to actually have Charlie call for a vote?
Oh, I am, but everybody else.
You want to wait?
Well,
Well, there were not a lot of responses.
No, I was just going to say, Bonnie and Ann went back and forth and did their things. It was,
So there's been a whole conversation going on.
Put out there a week ago.
You're right, and information was put out to us, and comments were made, and Ann really didn't say she'd be opposed to it.
The only response on Derp Hub came from Leroy that said, they'll do whatever we want.
And she is speaking from her school perspective. So that would be the only thing that, since this discussion happened within the public libraries, is there a corresponding
school
issue? But if what you're doing is getting you've got access to
The book
the
doesn't
kids.
go away. They just put it out. It just doesn't happen to meet the goal.
If you
It's
got
sort of like
access
what we're doing
and
now.
you're not
Some of them don't
invested,
pay
as soon as
attention to
you
what the
get
other
back,
libraries
you're
want.
Right.
The document on the agenda did go out.
Well, yeah, I mean, if in 7 days, if someone hasn't picked up their book, we want it back, because we're missing cert. It's that simple. So,
This is something, like when we started in 2003 and Horizon offered that we could all do what we all wanted to do. When we come back now and look at it, go, there's a lot of things that would have been easier if we just said, this is the way it is. And since, I personally have people come in to pick things up that do not live in our town, and sometimes up to as many 4 different communities, and they're always thrown by, well, I thought I had this, and, if it just...
well, this is something that universally affects every library.
Right.
Whereas my return dates don't necessarily affect, your return dates. But, the whole, that's one thing to me we can all universally agree on.
How long they had to come and get something. I'm
Yep.
going, sorry about that.
Yep. And because, once they check it out, it picks up the item record there and it tells them the return date. So
So if this goes to 7 days, then the hold notice language becomes much easier too.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
this is just an easy one. I so move.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
So agreeable. Well, for a smaller group now. You can tell James we did a lot today. There are a few people that aren't here. I was going to say there are a few agitators that aren't with us today. So
I already asked. He said he was fine going to 7.
yeah, I know that happens seldomly, but I can live with it. Makes me kind of wonder, but.
Go ahead and vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Let's see, technology user group ideas.
Oh, Brad. The item is the ghost of heaven.
I just got that.
What?
Yeah, it's an LR9 is your exception.
Oh, because it's local request for 90 days. So that's the only one that's under.
Yes, it's the only one's LR9.
I'm not sending out anyway.
Through that one?
Okay, with the possibility that the April meeting will be canceled, it might be, might not be.
Are we
This-
talking down to our
ILS.
future? Okay, thank you.
It's prudent at this point to say that we might not meet again for Pro Technology Users Group. So my little time to say, okay, I'm the one who put together this agenda, so if you have any topics that you would like to throw out at me, I can't guarantee they'll make it onto the agenda for Technology Users Group, but I love having choices when it comes to that point of creating the agenda. So already this year, we've had some discussion on projects, well, this year, this school year, projects done at different libraries, publicity done on Facebook. We had one from a non-member of this committee about security or what was that one that Red Wing did? Password
security.
security and maintenance. Does anyone have any topics they would like to propose to be discussed in Technology Users Group?
That's off the top of my head.
Is there anything that you're going to the technology conference? Was there anything from the technology conference at McAllister next week that looked like it really had potential?
I don't know. Not really that I have seen. I mean, it's always possible that something will jump out, but I'm not really anticipating anything.
Oh, we do want to, I would like to make one comment. SELCO helped us with getting a responsive website.
Oh.
And it's working out really, really well. It looks good. Well, my person made it look good, but I mean, we had the format and everything, and it's working well on all the different devices. So that's turned out to be really good.
That could be a presentation. They have a new website.
Yeah, because I didn't really know anything about that until I went to a conference in the fall, and I said, you know, this is something everybody's working on these devices, and you really can't, you know, do it on your iPad or your phone unless you have the ability to do the responsive website. So it's really been, I think it's a good thing because I think more and more people are going to those smaller devices. So,
and if you have $350, you could buy the base Apple.
Oh yeah, I totally want that.
Do you really want one?
I'm going to get one.
I need some at home.
What are they, $350? That's less than what my first iPad.
I mean, I wear my like.
But you're right, Peggy. That idea that we need to be able to have websites that
we do, because you know, this conference I was at, you know, the kids even write their, you know, term papers on their phones. I don't know how, but they do.
I'm taking a math class. I do it all on my iPad.
I mean, everything.
I don't know how I'm doing it, but I am.
Yeah, and I think eventually, you know, that's what most people are going to go to rather than having, you know, laptops. Because this is something they can usually get everything they want on this device when they're just doing it for entertainment, which, you know, 90% of the home pieces, laptops for that. So to me, it's just a real plus. And we also started Zenio a couple of weeks ago. And our patrons have been very excited about it. So, but thank you. The website's great. You can thank Terry.
Okay. Good for you. I'll probably be at your place.
Well, if you don't have anything else right now, you can always feel free to email me any ideas for Technology Users Group.
We had a rather extensive list from the last time.
We do. I still have it.
Okay. Because that list had maybe 10 or 12 items on it. I think this committee sort of went crazy. Okay.
I keep a running list, including some staff ones that haven't been used yet.
Yeah, we've got some internal ideas too.
And who knows, it could be analytic tech between now and then, so I can link some other of those.
And Cheryl and Tyler are going to Kosugi, and we have scholarships going to the Library Technology Conference as well as a couple of staff members. So, if the Moose show is at your place, I'm going to be in Plainview.
For a couple of years, we've been going to the internet, well, not a couple of years, but once every 3 years, we've been going to the Internet Library in California. I went last year, but I'm sending someone else this year because it's a really good conference. I got a lot out of it, but I don't have the technical background to get as much out of it as the person I'm sending. But, you know, to me, if you go to a conference, you come back with 1 or 2 good ideas, it's been worth it. And it's a very good conference.
If you really like that one, Peggy, even better, I think, is Computers in Libraries.
Well, I sent Michelle there last year.
Okay.
And I gave her choice this year. I said she could go to that one or she could go to the Internet Library.
She should mix and match.
They're both very good.
And
I haven't been to either, but I just know what people tell me.
well, I've been to the Internet Library twice, and each time I've come away with at least one good idea. So.
And a reminder, there are scholarship monies available for those that want to go to some of these places. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll go to announcements.
I don't have any.
Oh, okay. Anybody? Yeah, that's all. So if we don't have one on April 16th, then the next one would be May 21st, it looks like.
So under announcements, Lake City is doing their groundbreaking next week. No, 2 weeks. So we.
When Angie's retirement.
Oh, and Angie Fern from Dodge Center her last day is this Friday. She and her husband are moving to northern Wisconsin where he has family. And so I've been working with the board president over there and the city administrator. They're looking at hiring a temporary to, while during the transition. And then they're looking for a replacement. So, and the Wabasha Public Library board has a search committee and is working with City Hall to do a replacement for the Wabasha Library. So, some more things changed, some other things stay the same, or the other way around. More things.
Is April 28th besides the board meeting?
Oh, April 28th is the day that will, by the end of the day, I will be hyper. If it is the Legacy Review Committee is meeting to take to review the second round of community collaboration grants. The Advocacy Committee is meeting. The Nominating Committee is meeting. The board is meeting. The board is meeting early that day so that it can adjourn early and go to a poetry party. Okay. Yes, thanks for bringing that up.
And the poetry party is open to?
The poetry party is open to every library staff, trustee. Ted Boss is the featured speaker, who is a Minnesota Book Award poet, and then those individuals who have their poems in this year's SELCO anthology are invited to come to a, not really an open mic, because the open mic implies that anybody who has anything can read, but it'll be a poetry reading of anybody who has their stuff in the poetry anthology with desserts and treats. So, yeah, we have a really busy April. Okay.
Okay, if there's nothing else,
Very good. Thank you.